Bloodtide, the 22nd Doctor Who Big Finish main range release, first released in 4 parts across CD and download on the 23rd of May 2001, and written by Jonathan Morris. The 6th Doctor, voiced by Colin Baker, takes his companion, Evelyn Smythe, voiced by Maggie Staples, to the Galapagos Islands, i.e. Bacarizo Marino, on the 19th of September 1835, so that Evelyn can have a chance meeting with one of her historical heroes, that being Charles Darwin, voiced by Miles Richardson. While there, they come across the settlement where the crew of the HMS Beagle have kind of set up and get to meet some of the historical characters in the area, including Darwin, Captain Robert Fitzroy, voiced by George Telfer, Governor Lawson, voiced by Julian Harries, and Greta Rodriguez, voiced by Jane Goddard. However, they soon discover that things are going a bit strange around the place, particularly with Governor Lawson, because people are going into the jail cells, into the kind of cells overseen by the governor, but are then seemingly disappearing. And the Doctor soon discovers that this is actually a plan by the Silurians. Now, it's great to hear the Silurians get another role in Doctor Who. I mean, despite being one of, in the list of Doctor Who's most iconic monsters, they didn't actually appear that much in the classic series. Like, they only actually got 2 appearances, those being Doctor Who and the Silurians and Warriors of the Deep. Like, those are the only 2 appearances they got. So it's nice to hear them get a role in the Big Finish audio dramas. Now, of course, with Charles Darwin kind of around, this does lead into a question of evolution. And ultimately, what they end up discovering is that all those years ago, when Silurians ruled the Earth, that there was a Silurian scientist called Tulok, voiced by Daniel Hogarth, who, God, how best to explain this? He was a scientist, and he took some of the kind of primitive ape creatures that were roaming around the Earth at the same time as the Silurians, and the Silurians had mainly used them for food. However, he had experimented on these primitive apes in order to make them kind of last longer, kind of live longer lives, provide more meat and more sustenance for the Silurians. However, he had been found out as to what he had been doing, and eventually the Silurians had to put themselves into stasis in order to survive an oncoming catastrophe, i.e. something about the moon. I think the moon was getting too close to the Earth, or that's what they thought. So they said to Tulok, right, we're going to go into stasis, you're going to have to stay on the planet with your mutated apes, and you're going to have to just ride it out as in banishment. He managed to survive it, but upon surviving it, he had gone back and had sabotaged the pods, leaving only a handful of Silurians, at least in this settlement, left, including a female Silurian named Shavak, voiced by Helen Godwin. However, over the years, his kind of apes had eventually evolved, gone through the evolutionary process, and had evolved into humans. And, of course, like with most Silurian stories, now that they have woken up, they want their planet back. And Tulok, well, he personally wants to reclaim the planet for the Silurians, or Homo Reptilia, but he also wants to essentially wipe out the humans and start again. Like, he still believes in his experiments, and he still wants to continue with them. And so it's up to the Doctor, Evelyn Smythe, Darwin, and the various crew of the HMS Beagle in order to try and stop Tulok, stop the Silurians, and ultimately reclaim the Earth of the humans. Now, there's also the Merker in here, who... The Merker, I believe, only appeared in Warriors of the Deep. I might be wrong about that one, but Warriors of the Deep, I think I said in my review of it, I mean, if I remember where, then I'll stick a card kind of somewhere up here or the like. But I personally thought at the time when I watched it that Warriors of the Deep was the weakest Doctor Who story I had ever watched. I mean, that's just what I thought of it at the time, and I really wasn't impressed by the Merker. But anyway, I mean, this is a great story because it does kind of question things, and it does cause Charles Darwin, Miles Richardson's Charles Darwin, to actually question about his theory. Like, he does posit posit it to Evelyn early on, and she kind of is keen to listen to it, is keen to kind of help him along with it. But then later on, when he finds out that the Silurians effectively created the first humans, that leads him to kind of question everything, which is honestly something that in course of science that we should do. We should question everything, question how things are and why they work. But ultimately, Tulok is making a decision to wipe out the humans, and Evelyn does ask, well, why is he trying to do that? To which the Doctor, I think, sums it up quite well. It's like, well, what would you do if you woke up one day and found your home full of pests, like full of rats and full of everything, full of rats, full of bugs, full of everything pests that you don't want to your house? What would you do? It's like, well, the first thing I do is put down some pesticide. Oh, yeah. So Tulok has managed to synthesize a poison, and he wants to unleash it upon the world to wipe out humanity, give a blank slate so the Silurians can reclaim the Earth and he can continue on with his experiments, which is typical Silurian affair. But I do think this is a great story, as it does show you a part of history. It shows the Doctor and Evelyn trying to interact with history without causing too much damage, and it's a great story for the Silurians. Anyway, at the end of it all, the Doctor and Evelyn say their goodbyes, and then the Doctor, when Charles kind of asks what they should do or if they can tell her anything, Dr. Mee says to him, you know what, one name, remember the name and look it up in a couple of years, and that's what I'll do for you. Alfred Wallace. To which he says that, and then everyone goes on their way, and it's like, you know what, I should get back to Alfred Wallace at some point myself. I mean, I promise I'd do something for him. And Evelyn just goes, no, Doctor, no. Which I think is understandable. I mean, you just had a big adventure with kind of creatures threatening to destroy the Earth, Silurians, and Charles Darwin. Don't go mucking it up for somebody else. Allow Alfred Wallace to do his thing. But that's my overall thoughts on Bloodtide. I think it's a fun Sixth Doctor story with Evelyn Smythe and Silurians. And to be honest, what more can you want? Anyway, will it be my next Big Finish story? Well, we'll have to wait and see. Till then, see ya.